Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this webinar. I am Elise Donovan for BVI Finance. Welcome to the BVI FinTech Training Program Information Session brought to you by the HLSCC Community College Robert Mathavious Institute for Financial Services, BVI Finance, working in collaboration with Professor Keith Carter of KBC Global Partners of Singapore. Last year, we launched a very successful FinTech program, and we had about 22 students graduating in the first cohort. This year, we will launch a second cohort, and we have brought the experts, Professor Keith Carter, who has just waved to you, and the president of the HLSCC Community College, Dr. Richard Georges, to speak to you tonight about what we aim to achieve with this program. I'm not going to be talking much, just facilitating and helping to answer the questions. But before we ask Dr. Georges and Professor Carter to open their mics, I will give you their bios. They're very impressive bios. Dr. Richard Georges, he's the president of the HLSCC Community College, and he became the 5th president in October 2020 and the first alumnus to assume that role. As the chief executive officer of the institution, he guides the college in the execution of its mission, strategic objectives, and more. As president, Dr. Georges has overseen the development of the college's new strategic and master plans, the expansion of the workforce programming, as well as the reaffirmation of its accreditation with the Middle States Commission on Higher Education. Dr. Georges previously served as the Vice President of Academic Affairs, Director of Institutional Advancement, Head of Humanities, and as a faculty member. He's a multidisciplinary academic working in literature, literary criticism, cultural theory, philosophy, and leadership development. And he is an award-winning writer and editor, a fellow of Stellenbosch Institute of Advanced Studies, and he is the Virgin Islands' current poet laureate. Dr. Georges earned his PhD in critical and creative writing from the University of Sussex, and he has an Master in Arts from Aberystwyth University, a BA in English from Texas Christian University, and an Associate's in English and Politics from HLSCC. He's going to correct me if I've said anything wrong there, but I will now move on to giving you the bio for Professor Keith B. Carter from KBC Global in Singapore. Keith Carter's mission, he said, is to help businesses achieve value for their data investments by monetizing data and delighting customers with actionable intelligence. He is the author of Amazon's bestseller, Actionable Intelligence, a guide to delivering business results with big data fast. He is also the contributing author to the book, Leading with IT, Lessons from Singapore's First CIO by Professor Alex Siao. Keith is an IE University Future World Fellow, and he has taught at National University of Singapore's Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy and was an associate professor of NUS's School of Computing, and he was the founding director of NUS Ripple FinTech Lab and was the founding co-director for Crystal Center, which is a deep tech research center. He has an MBA from Cornell University in New York, a bachelor's in electrical and computer systems engineering from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, and before joining the National University of Singapore, he worked at Estee Lauder and Accenture. I now welcome both Professor Carter and Dr. Georges to say good night. Professor Carter is halfway around the globe, so it's actually very early on Wednesday morning for him, although it's Tuesday night here for us. So thank you for waking up, Professor Carter, to be with us. I know it's very early in your morning, but and thank you all for joining this information session, and we know it's going to be an informative one. Professor Carter and Dr. Georges, please open your mics.
Good evening, and good morning, sir. I just want to apologize ahead of time for any the household noises that you might hear and voices that you might hear given the time of the day in the BVI. If I may, Professor Carter, very briefly, welcome everyone and thank you, Madam Chair, for that stellar introduction. And you aced all of the pronunciations of all of the various foreign languages and names that precursor our bios. But I think for my part, I'm going to get out of the way very quickly. But I just wanted to thank you and BVI Finance for your support, ongoing support of this program. To thank Professor Carter and his team for doing such a stalwart job and delivering it. And I just want to speak very briefly to the Institute, the Robert Mathavious Institute, and the broader HLSCC Community College as a parent institution, and why we believe this particular program is sorely needed and is filling a very essential gap in terms of the skills, both in the financial services industry, but also in the wide application across the public and private sectors with respect to really of analytics and how to manage big data. So for my part, the college is in the first year of its new strategic plan, 2022 to 2027, of charting our course. And we have a strong commitment within our mission to develop high quality programming and to be responsive to the needs and opportunities that present themselves, especially when we can service the particular centers of excellence that we define at the college, of which financial services, of course, one of the foremost ones. The first strategic objective, first strategic goal rather of the college's strategic plan is teaching and learning. And the first strategic objective is, and I'll read it here verbatim, pursue relevant and market-driven academic, short-term, alternative credential, and career technical education programs. And of course, this program is an exemplar or a great example of one such program that is responsive in those facets. The Robert Mathavious Institute was established in 2002 as a collaboration between HLSCC and the Financial Services Commission, which still serves as the substantive patron of the Institute. It was renamed, help me out at least, I think it was not last year, I think it was 2021, I think it was maybe. It was renamed in honor of the director who founded it, Dr. Robert Mathavious, who needs no introduction to the attendees on the call. And it is our center of excellence with respect to education and training in the financial services sector. RMI offers training and certifications in ACCA from the Corporate Governance Institute and the International Compliance Association, in addition to RMI specific programs and courses and customized training delivered direct to businesses in the sector. I just want to briefly, before I step off out of the way of Professor Carter and his presentation, is to recognize the presence of Ms. Chidi Liburd in our attendees, and Ms. Liburd is our incoming director, and I believe will shortly after this call be preparing to board a plane, and we're expecting her to have her first day in office on Friday. So I just want to say a very brief welcome to Ms. Liburd, and then I believe Professor Carter and Ms. Donovan, if I do apologize, because the future webinars and sessions will be Ms. Liburd here playing this role and not me. So welcome, Ms. Liburd. And with that said, Madam Chair, I yield the proverbial mic and the floor back to you, and I look forward to the webinar as it proceeds.
Professor Carter, thank you very much, Dr. Georges, for that introduction about the Robert Mathavious Institute, and I'm sure everyone is aware of the courses that you offer, and I'll now ask Professor Carter.
Well, good evening, everyone, and greetings from sunny Singapore. I'm really glad to be here, and thank you, Dr. Georges, for the welcome and overview. Really wonderful. And Elise, thank you for chairing this, kicking us off as well, especially this first webinar of 2023. So exciting to be back and really looking forward to working with each one of you about what is FinTech, how can we digitize, how can we make a difference and really contribute to the future, not just of your own experience and what have you, but BVI and the surrounding and the world as well. In fact, let us get right into it. And so we went and said, what is it that we want to really have people take away? And each one of these steps, Elise and I have worked on for years now, since 2017, I think, in different ways. And the future of BVI in the Caribbean is really in all of our hands to be able to make a difference and make a change. So welcome again to the BVI FinTech program. And looking forward to just getting you into this. What is it going to be about? What will you learn? What will you be able to do? How will you be able to contribute? And who's looking for the types of skills you're going to be gaining? So at the end, I just want to highlight one thing on the webinar program is you'll be able to come in with some questions and answers. But throughout the program, please feel free to type in a question into the chat or highlight something to one of the administrators if you have an immediate thought as well. While we might not address it immediately, we certainly appreciate that so we can pick it up right at the end as well. All right. So at the top of this is, I want you to take away that there's new business models. Companies have moved on from selling data, for example, into monetizing answers. And there's been a mistake made in the industry that data projects are business-led. In fact, they are completely run by the business in order to be successful. And of course, some of the emerging tech, for those who were here for the last program, we'll see some new ones because technology always changes. And so does what we're talking about, what we're working on. So digital assets is one of the additional things we're putting in. Data, of course, was always there. That's the fundamental in terms of getting us to answers. And AI, as Elise knows and some of the other folks, I always like to say AI is fake news. Well, up until ChatGPT, we're finally beginning to take that first step there. Why? Because there's a concept of one more that every business needs to be able to do, and also every government needs to be able to connect with. One more, selling one more product to one more person, or getting to know one more constituent. This is a fundamental. We need to be able to make timely, relevant offers. We need to be able to answer questions right at the time someone is at their time of need. And so with that, how do we enable businesses to be effective, efficient, and more? Well, I'm going to start us off right with a case. You came here for understanding a little bit more. And so whenever a company makes an investment into data or being able to do digitalization, that investment needs to align with business outcomes. It can't be, hey, we got cool new tech. It's got to be, this is the change that we're making to the business. This is how we're going to support customers and be able to make business faster. This is how we're going to be able to help the whole economy act faster as we put some automation in. And so here's two quick cases. Let's say you have a company, or a government organization, would our staff buy a partner's product? And if so, when and how much? So for example, every organization has various partners of merchants and banks, insurance. And we want to put some math on it. We want to put some numbers on it to see, is it worth our time to go ahead and do something like this? And so if you think about an insurance company, every company every organization should know when a family event is going to happen, like a new child is born. And so at that time, normally we send a little hamper, but a company that's thinking a little bit ahead could say, "Look, wait a second, good financial literacy says that a family should have insurance, should have savings." And so how do we make sure that the family has this? And right at that time of life change, be able to offer the right product, maybe an insurance package. This is a timely, relevant offer. By working together with the insurance companies, the organization could, if they wanted to, have or achieve additional revenue, or at least show their partners, hey, we're a good partner. You were able to help our staff, and at the same time, your business was improved. And a second area we look at is, well, can we fill positions at our partners and improve careers? Every organization has attrition of people moving on. But how much of our organizations do we really know our people, the skills they have, their desires, what they're going to do next, what they could do next, what they should do next in their career path to be successful? So you don't get stuck in the wrong position or get stuck in the career until it's too late to move. And so a great HR is data-driven, looking at that, understanding and planning out careers. And so when a person is thinking about moving, or should, because the business has changed or people have changed, then work with employment partners. Are there companies, are there recruiting agencies that can help people move to that next great step in their career? And again, having 3,000 staff, 10% attrition, maybe there's a referral fee there. We all know about referral fees and getting people over to another company. So again, there's an opportunity here to be data-driven and make a difference in people's lives, a timely, relevant offer. And that's why we love our phones, our devices. We're the right person at the right time in order to prove outcomes. And so here in Singapore, this is one of the companies called Crimson Logic. You can see Elise standing next to me there. That was a great trip. And here we are in their data center, looking at how their companies are interacting with their product around the world, how their people are interacting, logging in, security issues. And one other interesting thing, they also looked at, because you sign that form when you use a company's internet, they also looked at, well, are they looking at LinkedIn? Are they possibly looking at some job sites? This person might be interested to leave. And what does that mean? Well, if it's a star, then the HR person could highlight to the manager, listen, what's going on? Maybe there's an opportunity here to adjust what they do or recognize them in different ways. Doesn't always have to be money. Or for a person who's looking, they both feel it's mutual to leave, maybe they can again come back in and assist. Knowing about people's intentions is important. And so this organization gets ahead and also tracks and sees not only cybersecurity, but how to help people through their career as well. I think it's important for us to know that while we're working on things today, we should also anticipate the future in 2030. And so I got to contribute last year to KPMG's 30 Voices on the Future. And there were 4 key points I want you to take away from this. The ESG being a tremendous change driver. So that's where sustainability changes the way we do logistics, business, and more. Data, so critical. How is it that when we go into a particular organization, they don't have our loyalty information, even though they have businesses around the world, but yet we get onto Google and Amazon and it immediately recognizes us and keeps on sharing the right information at the right time to entice us or meet our needs. Google Maps, for example, meets our needs. And so the question here is, well, how do some organizations get through this and others don't seem to be able to? This is a huge opportunity and risk. On a management side, being able to enable actionable intelligence. When do we work with our competitors? When do we work against them? How do we make sure to win? And finally, HR. Being able to hire people of a different mindset. Folks that graduated like me 20 or 30 years ago, we learned completely different things than what is in the market today. And so HR in particular wants It's highlighting that people with systems thinking and design thinking are the minimum baseline for new talent. So we need to think through that. And one more thing, Elise is, I always appreciate her. She's like, what about, how do we talk about digital assets? Where do we think through this part? And for the next few slides, I'm going to be sharing a bit about Singapore and what we do here. Most of the time, I can't pay with cash, even if I wanted to. Starbucks doesn't take cash here. Neither does the transportation system. And so by 2030, this is a prediction I made about that some economies will be entirely digitized. Singapore is certainly on that path, but there are other economies here in Asia. If you've flown into China recently, even in the past 6 or 7 years, you would have found that you're expected just to use WeChat, even to make a donation to the man on the street. So digitalization is here, it's been here, and it's just moving faster and faster. Well, who's this Keith Carter guy? I just want to bring you in a little bit, and as Elise mentioned, some of my background, but this is a bit of data about who I am. This is the big data means more to me, but the small data also makes up a 360-degree view of who I am. Maybe there's some things we could connect on here, and maybe there's something that you would have found interesting as well, something we have in common. So you could make a slide like this too. Certainly, if you join this program, we ask you to, so we get to know a full view about you as well. But there's a few key words I want you to be able to know through this. First is know, decide, and act. Being able to, I hope you know some new things from today, be able to take a decision as to what you want to do and ultimately take action. And actionable intelligence is about having the right information in the right person's hands at the right time in order to improve outcomes. So some quotes from past participants that went through this. I'll just take a look at one here. In the first instance, Helen Marquez said, this is a fintech industry that can fuel the BVI economy. In fact, as you look back over history, you can see how financial services has tremendously contributed. And as part of professional development, I engaged in it, exposed me to using UiPath, which is robotic process automation, Power BI, to manipulate and create visualizations. It helped get an understanding of app development, RPA, and artificial intelligence. And she felt like she's more tech savvy now, both to work in her work and personal life. So that was great for her to share her experience here. And we have more quotes here to bring you through as well. And I'll certainly come back on them later on. I just want to highlight something from Pierre. He said it was an eye-opening experience, being introduced to existing technologies and how they're used. And they actually used a project to apply these technologies. And the group presentations show that there's a lot of talent in BVI. And this is a key point. The talent that is in BVI is ready to bloom and blossom, because when I compare how similar programs have been run in Japan or in Singapore or Vietnam, they've done very, very well. But the BVI participants, at least included, were shining stars in terms of this. Really fantastic. So what are we looking to achieve? As an overall outcome, we were looking for mid-career people who have either strong business acumen or good technical skills. Either or, because we want to build up. But if you don't have either, it can be a bit challenging. We're here to enable fintech transformation, especially in businesses and government, not just in BVI, but around the region, and establish new fintech organizations. There's no better time to start new companies, especially based on some of the new technologies and opportunities that exist. The target is really to develop the Caribbean fintech ecosystem, connect together, build relationships. Their alumni are talking together, working together since the program run, and be able to compete globally with local talent as opposed to importing global talent that competes with local talent. Let's flip that around. And finally, on summary, structured intensive, hands-on. Everyone has taken this has said to me, Prof. Keith, this is an intense program. I really had to manage my time. Then in addition to learning in the classroom, doing work as individuals, perfecting it in groups, then you get to apply it with companies, because that's the last point there. Really applying gets it to stick, gets it to actually deliver benefits to the organizations that are in BVI as well. But what is the Singapore? Why should they be a model for BVI? Singapore is regularly ranked number 1 or 2 against the US and a couple other countries, Denmark, in terms of e-government, in terms of digital index and more. And so let's take a look at why that is. A couple of weeks ago, I received a message on my phone in regards to taxes. They said, and let me just stop sharing for a second here. They said, okay, Keith Carter, you owe taxes. Please log into this portal, and your taxes have already been calculated for you. All you need to do is accept and pay. So you go in, click on look on the amounts and what have you. If there's no disagreement, they already calculate any donations to charity I did and more. And then they go ahead and ask me one more question: which bank account would you like to deduct it from? So it's very, very efficient. And so this is one of the case studies that we go through, filing taxes. How do we get this to a no paperwork and don't have to have people visit the tax office for filing? And this, of course, increases the nation's productivity. Singapore, similar to BVI, your key asset, your key resource is people. So anytime we can add an additional minute in to people's time, we are able to improve the GDP, improve national output and more. So critical. Let's take a look at another one. When I go to update my passport, all Singaporeans have a SingPass. So this is a government application that sits and lets you connect with healthcare, immigration, with your taxes again, with school information, all on one government portal. And it uses something called an API, Application Programming Interface, and RPA, Robotic Process Automation, in order to get things done. So you can set up an e-appointment, and that'll go ahead and let you collect your passport and jump in and continue. I'd like to show a quick video, if I can, about what that looks like as well. So let's take a quick look at this, and I'll share so you can get it optimized view.
Alamak, my passport left 9 months. Don't worry, applying passport online so easy. Come, I'll show you. Before you start, this is what you need: SingPass, recent photo, payment. You just have to go to the ICA website and click on the My ICA icon on the top right of the page. It's just 2 steps. It's so easy. After you log into My ICA using your SingPass, look for the e-service tab and select passport. Click on Apply for Self. Did you know you can also apply for your family members too? You just need their NIC date of issue, passport date of expiry, email address, and contact number. I just have to check and make sure my name and IC number is correct, and fill up my contact details. Okay, my details are correct, just in case ICA need to contact me. Next, upload your photo. Check through your details, declare, and press submit button. Done. Let's make payment. See? Very easy. If Uncle Ali can do it, so can you. I just have to make an e-appointment to collect my passport. Here, here, or here. Okay?
Okay. So I just wanted to share that with you. And let's keep going. I hope you get a sense as to what it's like to get a passport here and establish, quickly renew, and even for family members, which is one of those key points. So let's continue on into this collaboration. We're working very closely with RMI in order to deliver this program with you, be able to bring these learnings across and make sure that everyone who participates gains the most possible. This program aligns with, as Dr. Georges said, the other programs that RMI is working through, and in particular, it's continuing to expand, not just in BVI, but internationally, to bring in regional international faculty as well. To that end, we have advisors to the FinTech program to make sure that we've put together a holistic, comprehensive program that's not just useful in the region, but globally as well, working with everyone from folks in the World Economic Forum, UBS, one of the largest private wealth management companies, and more. And of course, people in BVI have come in and shared their thoughts as to how useful it is and what we should tweak for the local economy. What type of jobs could you get into if you were to join in here? Project manager, top of the hill here to make sure things come together. Change manager. In fact, you know, when we use our phone, it's not just that we build something with a technology person and you need to know how to program. No way. Technology requires a holistic approach. And so you need to have some of those skills where people are able to actually make a difference, like change, driving people to change their business process, quality, checking that the product looks good. Some of that also are people with psychology skills or English majors and what have you. So you don't have to be just a technical person, but you know why someone would want to use the system. Business analyst, of course, data. Well, we need to get to answers. Robotic process automation engineer. Let's take a business process and move it into an automated process. And project manager. Product manager. A product manager actually thinks about what could a new product be? How can we design it? How we want to use it, and more. Now there's additional skills that are coming in. Blockchain analysts, from either fraud or financial, know your customer or more. You need to have skill around blockchain. Chat GPT prompter. This is a whole new skill. And this isn't a data scientist, by the way. This is a person who knows how to reach back and use the human lexicon in order to have the AI give the right answers. And of course, a lot of these things run in the cloud. So cloud manager is important too. So people of all backgrounds are welcome. Now let's look at the program structure. In this, we start off with why FinTech. We get into what are the case studies? How do you use design sprint to do product development? And what's data-driven decision-making all about? How do we monetize answers? What are businesses like Google and Amazon? How are they so successful? How can we make our own? And that gets us into the how. Understanding digital assets, creating your own robot, like with robotic process automation. And then, of course, data storytelling, making better decisions with Power BI and ChatGPT. And let's put it into practice. This is a capstone, and you work with companies in your area. If you're from BVI, you'd work with companies in BVI. If you're from Anguilla, you'd work with a company in Anguilla, and so forth. And some of the past projects were automating driver license renewal or regulatory filings for trust companies. The way the structure is it's first 8 weeks in terms of FinTech concepts, being able to go through everything from the cases and then getting what skills, and then what are the outcomes? We always like outcomes. Inputs are nice, outcomes is what really makes a difference. Know, decide, and act. We want you to know more. We want you to take decisions as to what you're going to use, and then really take action as well. And so this is the list of things we go through. We add in cybersecurity and privacy. This is a critical thing because if we're working with data, if we're automating, if we're going online, we need to make sure that this is protected. And I'm just highlighting this because it's not just about your skill set. It's also connecting in with the community of cybersecurity. Group presentations round out your work in terms of the theory and knowledge and trying out the technology. Now that you're comfortable with it, then you get into the capstone where you take an IT solution and come up with a business result. Ultimately, then your capstone presentations get to show what you've put together, how BVI and Caribbean can drive improvement and that new businesses can be established. The way we deliver this is Monday and Wednesday evenings, Zoom sessions 7 to 9. It's a practical training too, so you have individual, group work, plus a capstone. And finally, we're going to commence May 15th. One more thing. We don't just teach the work around technology and business. We also want to bring to the table with you Amazon's leadership principles. Things like customer obsession, ownership, invent and simplify, and I want to stop on this one. Leaders are right a lot. Well, why are leaders right? Amazon believes, and I do too, when they seek diverse perspectives and work to disconfirm their belief. Now, that's a little bit different, right? A lot of leaders say, I'm right. I'm the highest paid person in the room, that we call that the hippo, and they go ahead and say, okay, let's go. But leaders go ahead and seek diverse opinions. They try to struggle and work through, hey, what do you think about this? Let's put some white papers together and discuss through. The other point here is disagree, but commit. It's okay. We want to go ahead and make a difference. We need to move fast. Sometimes we need to disagree, but also commit to delivery. Deliver results, and then plus one more. What's a great principle that you believe needs to be added to this for what you're looking at, the way things are, how things could change? Amazon, by the way, has this too, plus one more. They leave it open. So because we should all reserve the right to be a little bit smarter tomorrow than we are today. The goal for the BVI and for the Caribbean at large, be able to future-proof, be able to systematically upgrade yourself into really hot, in-demand technical skills. For organizations, because we'll also have information sessions with businesses that are going to be running the capstone projects and government organizations, this is a better way to identify and select the right talent. Be able to really reskill staff as well. Build your own FinTech teams. Invest, know how to invest in new technologies in other organizations, as well as know how to regulate the industries, because you would have touched and felt, hey, this is what a smart contract really is. This is what it means to talk with an AI and what type of answers it provides. And for BVI or any of the nations that come in, grow our own talent. Where's the talent come from? Should come from our own backyard and become even more globally competitive. Who's going to be teaching this? We've got some great people coming in. I'm one of the faculty, of course. We have Chief Operating Officer of ANZ Bank who will be coming by to share thoughts on it. He's put in 2,000 robots into ANZ's bank. So that'll be great to hear from him. These are some of the other faculty members. Donald Farmer, he was head of business intelligence at Microsoft for 10 years. Phil Woods does blockchain, Huawei, expert in terms of design sprint. Anand does the Power BI and RPA. And we've got more guest speakers, more folks coming in to share with you. Whew, that is about the program. I'm going to open it up to questions and, of course, or comments, anything else people would like to come in on. All right. And as you're thinking about your questions or comments, there's one more thing to keep in mind. This program isn't just about you. Even from today's webinar, you should be thinking, how do I create 5 more jobs? Wherever you're sitting, how do I share knowledge with other people? So if there's something you heard today that you know a little bit more, go out there and share. This is you know, what's coming. Look, where people are actually, classes are actually teaching ChatGPT. Obviously, you're going to get to use it. Classes are talking about digital assets still. So go ahead out there and be ready to share, or even more importantly, you come into the program, we have high expectations for you to go in and deliver results once you're back in. All right. So looking forward to working with you. There is a question. What is the cost of the program?
I was speaking with my mic muted. Yes, Dr. Georges, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here. Oh, you want me to answer the question?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so I would say the sticker price, I believe, is $5,000 for the entirety of the program, but we are working on financial aid and scholarships opportunities as well. But it's I believe if you look at Professor Carter's timeline, I think it's, Prof, how many months is the course?
It's about 6 months.
Yeah, 6 months.
So we're looking to get that cost reduced by 50% for the students, with financial support from the ministry, from the government, I should say.
Ronnie had a comment here. Thank you so much for your comment. No specific question, but my comment is excellent delivery and great results-driven initiative and overall program. Appreciate it, Ron.
Keith, maybe you can share some more of the experiences of the first cohort.
Sure, why not? So within the first cohort, we started off the program around design sprint. And that's where we challenged everyone who'd come in to walk through the design sprint methodology, which is first of all, understand the current environment. What type of opportunities are there to make a change? What could be automated? What could be delivered faster? And we showed them the various case studies that were going on in Singapore. We had Diana come in and share what she was running in terms of a medtech, which allowed you to, on an app, see all your prescriptions, reorder prescriptions, see all your doctor's appointments, look at your medical history, etc. And so with those different case studies, the folks began to look outward of the classroom. Design sprint, you can't sit at your seat. You have to go out and actually find out what's going on. And then they selected a particular area to improve and then proposed. And they worked on that design sprint for the next 8 weeks. And then that group presentation includes that aspect, using design sprint as a framework, but then they would apply RPA to see what could be automated. They apply Power BI to see what type of data storytelling they could do. They considered cybersecurity risks as well. They considered the business impact too. So, and they were rated. We had folks come in from Amazon, from ANZ Bank, from UBS Bank, and others come in and do the group presentation evaluation. So that was starting from the first class, and we always like to run a red thread through the entire course. So you just keep hammering through. This is the framework. This is how we're going to get this done, and so forth. That was one answer.
I have a question asking how much programming knowledge do you need?
Elise, maybe you could share that one.
Well, I think you really don't need any programming knowledge, but you will need a lot of time to learn.
That's
yes,
right.
It's a very time-consuming program, so I would say you need the time so you can learn all the course has to offer. Keith, I think you're probably going to bring this out in the course, but for me, everybody has gone through the COVID experience. So perhaps you can talk about Singapore's, COVID experience and using like your phone and monitoring and letting you know, oh, you've been just next to somebody who was that kind of thing. So let's talk
Sure.
about that for a bit.
Well, Singapore, and thanks, Elise, in regards to the programming knowledge question there. Just to highlight, robotic process automation, you don't need to program in a language, but you do need to think about the business process as a logical flow, which is kind of like a program. You drag and drop your components in. Power BI is largely the same. There's a little bit of programming you can do to push it to the next level. But on the other side, you don't have to do programming to be able to type in a question about your data. Tell me why return on investment increased over the past 3 months, and it will respond to you based on the data. So it's pretty neat. A lot of the programming is taken care of for you. In regards to what Singapore did, so I mentioned that we have this app called SingPass. And that's like a centralized app that holds your information in the government registry. And so one thing else we had was an app called Trace Together. And Trace Together was implemented because people are the most important resource in Singapore. We don't have oil, we don't have minerals, only people. And so anytime someone's sick or down, you lose productivity. So in order to make sure that Singapore remains as productive as possible and people are safe and healthy, Trace Together was used so that you could know that you needed to quarantine or take the right steps to get back to health yourself and help other people stay healthy too. The office hero that comes in with sneezing and coughing and your red nose and still says, oh, I'm here to help. They should have gone home long ago. But instead, the office hero has come and infected everybody. And so with Trace Together, what it did was, in order to go to a mall, in order to go to the office, you actually had to have a green tag on your phone to show you were either vaccinated or you hadn't contracted COVID. And so whenever you go to a mall or something, you'd have to tap in. And finally, if you were next to people, it had something called Bluetooth on, and so it would recognize who was in your who you had come in contact with during the day. If you were next to people who had COVID, you'd be sent a warning. Hey, you've been exposed to COVID. You may want to consider, doing a COVID protocol to stay at home. Or they would actually, when they had a confirmed cluster, remember in those early days, they would say, all right, you're part of this cluster. Please stay home for this protocol of 7 days and what have you. What it allowed it to do is really clarify how it was spreading and also at the same time keep people productive that were low risk as well. So data-driven, all about data-driven.
Okay, we have another question. Describe the level of support that we'll get from lecturers.
Sure, there's lecturers and TAs that are part of the course. And so after the class, you do get support hours to ask questions. We have a WhatsApp group, so you can bring up questions there as well. We have, again, the teaching assistant to guide things through. That said, we do, even as we go into teaching hours and what have you, expect people to put their hand on the wheel and make sure that to move forward themselves. And there's so many resources that are available. So we do help you, guide you to those resources as well, and want to encourage people to do that. But so we both have to shake hands and work together to make sure that you can be as successful as possible.
And I think one of the best things about the class is that we are placed in groups from the outset. And so it's like, nobody's left behind because the group is going to bring you along, or you're going to help bring the rest of your group members along. So the group has to perform because we all want to make sure that we are the star group. And I think the incentive is to make sure that everybody in the group is getting the assignments done and doing what we're required to do, and learning the different programs and processes that we have to go through. So a big part of the interaction and learning comes from being in the group, and the group dynamics as well.
Very true, Elise. And that's the way it is in the office, right? You never do things all just by yourself. You are, so, no matter where you are called into some meeting to discuss things. And so being able to build those group dynamics around transformation, like Elisa said, is so key. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and someone wants to know if they can start getting material to prepare for the course, reading material.
I love it. I love it. That's a true enthusiasm, Clive. Certainly what we would do during the interview process is get to understand where you are in terms of technical and business. And if there's some things that we think you should pick up on or get more comfortable with, we'll provide some support around that. The most important thing that brings me to the interview side for a moment. Elise, can I speak about that for a little bit?
Absolutely.
So it brings you into, we want to get to know you. And most important is we want to get to know your steadfastness to complete the program. Because if you join and take up a seat, someone else can't join. So we really want to ensure that you're dedicated, you're willing to do the time management necessary, as Elise mentioned, but at the same time, that you see what the benefit of, you're thinking really how you're going to use this in the future, whether at your current work, or maybe you're going to start up something new, or maybe your work with others. I mean, these are going to be really important for us to understand your motivation.
And going back to the previous question also on the amount of support you get from the lecturers, I think they're always enormously available, even though they're in a different time zone. Keith is always available, Professor Carter is always available, as well as the other lecturers in the class. They're always available. And I think there's a particular lecturer that is assigned to your group. So they also have ownership of you and your productivity as well. So they're invested in your performance, and that helps them to sort of drive you to making sure that you're completing the projects and doing what you're supposed to do. So having that person, a lecturer assigned to you, and them having ownership of the group itself and their productivity, I think that also helps.
Definitely, that's right. Especially during the capstone, when groups are working very, very hard as well. And it's a little bit more free frame, because you then have to apply the tools of design sprint and the technology tools and the business ideas to go ahead and put everything together. And so that becomes an important point, to have that professor mentor and industry mentor to come alongside too. Thanks for sharing that, Elise. Absolutely.
Any more questions?
We do this on Zoom, but we do get to know each other pretty well because we meet regularly, and during that time, everyone's cameras are on and we all get to see each other and connect with each other. But it's just as important to meet in real life too. So we do encourage people to come in and join and work together on things. So meet together in person is always helpful. So that'll be part of this as well.
Yeah. I think there's an interview process, as Professor Carter said, to ensure that, this is exactly what you want to do, because it really is a time commitment. And I think some of us who are, working full-time at very demanding jobs, it's a little difficult to balance the demands of the course as well as, keeping up. So being in a group also helps sometimes when you're given assignments, then you can take a particular section and work on that. But like for our capstone project, my group, I don't know if anybody from my group is on here, but they were very demanding in terms of our time. We spent, I don't know how long, every day of the week, sometimes for 4 hours, every night, trying to complete our capstone. So it was very time demanding on us. And you, as you say, you get to learn each other, you get to learn the personalities, and you get to learn from each other as well.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. There's a question, Elise?
In order to pass or to become certified, is it only a group project that must be completed?
No. So in order, throughout every concept that you learn has some sort of assessment with it, depending on the concept. So if it's design sprint, we do the work around project, of course. But if it's a robotic process automation, we expect you to create a robot, actually. And so that's what passes that module. So different things will allow you to get through. Power BI, we expect you to do data storytelling. Tell us, what does this data mean? And give us the right output as well. I hope that helps on that point. It's a good question to ask. Of course.
Although you are in a group in the first instance, a lot of the assignments you still have to do individually and turn them in individually. So, and I think Dr. Georges was keen on making sure that those are used as benchmark to grade and to develop a sort of grading model. So I don't know if Dr. Georges, you wanted to comment on that, because you wanted to make sure that we having a specific grading model in line with what the HLSCC does. So I think you are the best person to speak on that.
Sure, thanks. So we will be receiving a certificate in financial technology from the Robert Mathavious Institute of HLSCC. And so we are still, I think we're going to iron out the details of Professor Carter of past credit distinction, etc. But it will be it wouldn't be a certificate of completion or participation. It would be a certification in FinTech from RMI. And so you would then have these assessments will be graded and it will be recorded in our learning management system. Every attendee will have a HLSCC ID number and access to the ongoing gradebook over the course of the training, and a transcript in addition to their certificate. So it's a proper course with extensive rigor, as Ms. Donovan can testify towards. So this is not at all meant to be taken meant to be taken lightly as a participatory sort of experience. It's very much a rigorous and a program that expects quite a bit from the attendee in order for them to be successful. I do see that Exora had asked. Yes, so Professor Carter had mentioned about the various assessments of each module, but the capstone really is that, like, it's sort of like the final project which carries the most weight for your success.
Here, wait a second. And one more thing, as you go through, as Elise said, you have individual projects and group. The reason we do individual is to make sure that you personally have gotten the concept. Then we pull you into the group so that way you can deliver together and no one is, unprepared. So that's the way we like to that's our pedagogy for this.
Professor Carter has put a link in the chat so that you can sign up to the course. And of course, if you have specific interest, you can go to this link and fill out the form. There will be an interview process and the timeline for the course. Who's going through that? Professor or Dr. Georges?
So the timeline for the course, I'll run back a little bit on that one. Here we go. And I think we're talking about May 15th as a start. So from May 15th, we go week by week, basically, and then for the group presentations on the 8th week, and then months 1 through up to 4 for the capstone. So normally we'll finish around, start in May and finish around October for everything. Feels long, but it won't feel long. Any question on the timeline? Okay. Well, this is on my side. That's what I have, and I certainly would love to keep in touch with you as well. And if you have any other questions or something, I put my LinkedIn there. But certainly feel free to catch up with Elise and Dr. Georges. Elise, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Carter. Thank you very much, Dr. Georges, for that informative session. Professor Carter is the main person for the FinTech program. And as you can tell, he has a wealth of experience. He's quite dynamic, and he is in love with BVI and all things BVI. And his commitment is really exceptional. He has been committed to working with us, as he said, since 2017. And he has proven time and time again that that commitment is unwavering. And he's keen on seeing the BVI develop to be Singapore-like. And so this program is an initiative that will help us on that path to becoming, the tech-savvy Caribbean nation or tech-savvy nation of the world next to Singapore, and up there in that list that he put up with, the US, Singapore, and I think was the UK, whoever else. And hopefully by 2030, we'll get BVI up there in the top 5 of tech-savvy nations, tech-savvy countries. And Professor Carter certainly has that ambition, and it's certainly something that I think is achievable. And his mantra is know, decide, and act. And we are acting by instituting this program. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us this evening. Thank you, Professor Carter, for joining us this morning. And we look forward to having most of you join us on the FinTech program. That your interest is shown by you coming on here tonight, and we hope we can translate that interest into action by having you a part of the second cohort of the FinTech program. Professor Carter wanted to say something.
Exactly right. And I see BVI has, Finance HLSCC has put the link to the form, the registration form in the chat, and also the link to my LinkedIn as well. So if you take a look at your chat in Zoom, and if anyone didn't get it, just let us know. And so that we can, and is there an email for someone to reach out to as well, if they have a question?
Yeah, well, we have all the email addresses for the persons who have registered on Zoom. Okay, so we will be sending you the forms and everything with regards to the program later on. And if you want to recap on this program, we will have a synthesized version of tonight's program for you to recap.
All right. Exciting. Okay.
Dr. Georges, any final words?
Not at this time. I think you know, there will be other opportunities to learn more about the program. I would say don't be too scared about the cost. Definitely going to be worth it. Talk to anybody who was involved in the first cohort, and I'm sure you will hear about the quality and of both the program and the overall experience. I would just say, you know, if you have someone or who might be interested who didn't get to attend the webinar, I believe we will be posting it out at a future date and having additional sessions. You can also email us at info@hLSCC.edu.vg, and your queries will be forwarded to the relevant parties. Or you can fill out the interest form. You know, I think that's probably one of the best things to do, because then you go straight into our database and you can stay in touch. And then you could actually share that link that Trevona shared in the chat, the forms link, which is the application form. Like I said, you can share that with anybody else who wasn't there who might have an interest, so we can collect the information and keep in touch about the developments of the program.
Okay. That's info@HLSCC.edu.vg. info@HLSCC.edu.vg. And of course, we'll be sending you more information, so look out for that. Thank you again for joining us, and do have a pleasant evening.